So if I solve it, do I get a prize?
I do.
Hello everybody, my name is Stevie Cade and welcome to Film Trigger. So Hulu seems to be on point right now because they just came out with a movie called Prey, which was a prequel to the Predator franchise that nobody asked for or wanted, and it ended up being pretty fucking awesome. And now they came out with a new HELLRAISER movie that nobody asked for. And well, I just watched it and I got some things to say. And before we dive into my opinions about this movie, if you could hit that like, thumbs up button, that subscribe button, and the little bell ding thing so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Without further ado, let's dive into my review for HELLRAISER.
What is it you pray for?
All right, little backstory here. I've never been a HELLRAISER fan. Nope. I liked the first movie, especially for its practical effects, and it kind of just stays right there. But moving forward in the franchise, I just never got into it. I never understood the Cenobites. I never understood Pinhead, what their participation in the movie was, like what's their intent. I never got it. And it seems like Pinhead and all the Cenobites were just cameos in the future films. And even in that first film, they were kind of like a cameo-esque sort of nature, but I thought that was just ramping up to show us more, which they never really did. And I'm only speaking in terms of me. I think I only watched like the first three and maybe like one of the later ones. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this franchise. This new version looks pretty decent that came on Hulu. So I was really excited to watch it. Hopefully the Cenobites and Pinhead can be in the forefront of this movie. That's what I really wanted. And did it deliver? Let's talk about it. Let's dive into what I do like about this film. Number one, the main plot point. The main story that's being told here, I thought was pretty well done. It sets up what the puzzle box is, what it does, what its main purpose is in this movie, while also diving into one of the characters in this movie named Riley. And we'll dive more into Riley's character in a little bit, but the main storyline that Riley plays into, she's a drug-addicted protagonist that's kind of forced into this situation. A little bit of family drama thrown in there, but it doesn't take away from the main focus, which is the puzzle box. The puzzle box is the driving force in this movie.
What's your deal? It has 6 sides, 6 configurations. It opens up and it cuts you.
I also really enjoyed the subtleties that this movie has. It kind of pays homage to the original series, or to the original film at least, and it pays its respect in that right, but also comes up with a completely new and original concept, which I really enjoy. I think if you're going to do a remake, a reboot, a prequel, a reimagining, or whatever, that's what you need to do. Bring something new to the franchise, while also tipping your hat to what came before it. And this movie does so very, very well. A huge part of the subtleties I was talking about, paying homage to the original film, is more praising the practical effects. Because this movie is very effect heavy, but it stays away from the CGI. Well, at least noticeably. I'm sure there's probably some CGI that cleans up some of the practical effects, but they did reuse some of the practical effects used in that first film. Specifically, that reverse effect. If you haven't seen the first film, this is spoilers, but it's like 30 years old, so whatever. There's that one scene when the dude's coming back from wherever the Cenobites are from, and you get this really cool effect of like, see the bones growing, the muscles melting onto the bones, and it creates this wonderful illusion that something is manifesting itself right in front of you. And obviously this is a practical effect where they would make this effect and then like melt it down and then play that in reverse so it looks like it's building up. They actually do that in this movie, and I thought that was a great tip of the hat to the original movie, and they did it so cleanly, so practical. But again, there probably are CGI effects added to it just to clean it up a little bit, but I don't mind that. I don't mind when CGI is used as a tool. That's what it should be used for. I thought that was a great way to somehow at least tie in the same essence that the first movie had into this one, because that first movie was actually pretty darn good. If you're gonna take from any of them, take from that one. There's a lot of creativity that goes into these practical effects, but specifically I wanted to talk about not only the set design, but the concept of the house in this movie. There's a house that this movie focuses on like halfway through the second and all the way through the third act, and I thought this house was amazing. This house is something that should continue on in this series. Just like Nancy's house in Nightmare on Elm Street ended up being the main house that Freddy would haunt people with in his nightmares. I think this house could definitely have that same value to this franchise. I just hope they continue it. I thought it was very creatively done, and it also plays into almost a vulnerability that the Cenobites have, which is a very positive thing because the Cenobites don't seem to have really any flaws. And again, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but I did want to give praise to the practical effects and the stage design and the creativity that went into this entire production. If there's one thing this movie has going for it, it was very creatively done. But before I dive into the costumes of the Cenobites and Pinhead himself, herself, itself, I do want to give a shout out to a couple of the actors here and their characters that they play, specifically Odessa Azion, Odessa Azion, I think that's how you say it. She plays Riley, and I thought her portrayal of this character was very well done. I felt empathy for this character. I felt frustration with this character. It all came through very beautifully, very organic. I thought Odessa did a really nice job, portraying somebody who's going through an addiction at the same time also wanting to change their life and be better, but they're kind of stuck in life and they don't know what to do. They're trying really hard, but they keep messing up. I think Odessa really did a great performance here and really captured what that would look like and translated it pretty well on screen. Also, maybe this is a little biased, but I couldn't help but notice like the character she's playing, Riley, like just the way they had her dressed up, just the way her hair is, and even some of her facial structure actually looks like a friend of mine, like eerily so. I don't know how to tell my friend that she looks like the drug addict from the HELLRAISER movie without it coming across weird. I'm not, yeah, I have to deal with that personally, but it was a fun part of the movie where I kind of related to the character a little bit more because I kind of know somebody that looks exactly like her. And number 2, Jamie Clayton as Pinhead. I thought this woman brought so much to the role, that needed it. She had this great presence about her and this very haunting cadence with her voice. Obviously, they used a modulator of some kind to change her voice, which typically in horror movies does not work for me because it usually sounds pretty fabricated and synthetic. This movie, it sounds actually pretty organic and very, very eerie.
It's time. All for us. What is it you pray for?
Kudos to the sound effects team for that, and kudos to Jamie Clayton for really bringing on this very haunting presence in this film. But I thought she did a wonderful job reimagining this character and bringing us a new Pinhead on screen that we can all really stand behind. I can't wait to see more of her moving forward if they make more sequels, which I hope they do. Now going back to the practical effects and actually the costume designs of the Cenobites and Pinhead, I thought these were very, very creatively done. Creative is the operative word today. It looks almost nothing like the Doug Bradley version of Pinhead, but at the same time, you pick up like this Doug Bradley vibe, and this is not easy to do. Obviously, you see the pins in the head, you're like, okay, yeah, Pinhead. But when it comes to visuals, when it comes to how this character looks, it looks almost nothing like the original HELLRAISER, and I love that. The original HELLRAISER wearing like the leather, black, and all that. No, there's no actual clothes in this movie when it comes to what the Cenobites wear, which is odd and creative and very unique. As a matter of fact, what their costume designs are made out of is skin. This skin peeled back away to make these very intricate but horrifyingly, disturbingly beautiful costume pieces look absolutely amazing and horrifying on screen all at the same time. I thought that was so unique, so creative, and it changes from Cenobite to Cenobite, so it's not the same thing over and over again, but their skin is the actual like drab that looks like their costume, but it's just how their pleasure, torture, whatever worked out for them. I thought that was very unique, and for me, a very well-received addition to the HELLRAISER mythology. I mean, I guess technically it's still leather, because it's skin, right? But you know what I mean. It's not prefabricated things sewn together. It's just human flesh turned into a dress somehow. And I really think these were very intelligently designed, but there is one aspect of them that's going to bring me into what I'm on the fence about when it comes to this movie, and that's simply the two-tone color palette that they have with the Cenobites costumes specifically. Obviously, if you've seen the trailer, you know what they look like. They're very like just drained of blood, ghostly white, like as white can be skin. And then where the skin is peeled away, you have the red for the blood, and it's just very two-tone. You see the white and the red. It does look really cool. It really does, but I think this movie could have benefited from having a few extra colored tones in there to really sell the depth of it, because I almost look at these things not as like people that were human beings at one point in time, as much as just like an alien race that just are weird as fuck. So I would have liked to have seen maybe like where they have like the chest open, you see all the muscles, like put some blacks in there, to kind of show different tone of dried blood and fresh blood that's constantly being secreted. I love reviewing horror movies. I say some of the weirdest shit. But maybe even some darker tones around the edge line of the skin that is peeled away, just to show that it was peeled away and it did go through some damage when it did so. Maybe some slight bruising color, or maybe even a gangrene, make them a little dirty, maybe not so clean cut like they were done in an operating room by surgeons. Some would argue that's what they're going for, but my point is, there's one real thing I really want to hone in on here, especially with Pinhead herself. Maybe it's the foodie in me, but her. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. It looked like a lattice crust cherry pie before you put it in the oven. I couldn't stop thinking of that. And me being a foodie, that put me in a very weird position of wanting cherry pie, but also wanting to enjoy this horror movie. Take what I just said, go watch it again, and tell me you don't see pre-cooked cherry pie with a lattice crust. Obviously, I'm being a little silly here, but my point still remains. I would have liked to see more tone in the skin, and actually, I would have liked to see different pigments of skin being used. I think that would be a very unique and very creative way to move forward with them. You know, somebody with a much darker tone of skin, and then you rip that apart. What different tones could you use for that costume design? I would really like to see that moving forward. I think that would bring a new and unique take on the Cenobites that we haven't seen before, or maybe it's freckled in one of the older movies. I don't fucking know. And it's not a wokeness thing. It's not an inclusive thing. I mean, you could look at it like that and you're not wrong. I just think on a creative level that we could definitely get some eye candy by using different pigmented skins, you know, because that's what humans are. We come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. Well, they got the shapes and sizes correct. Now let's play with the different colors that humans come in. Another thing that I'm on the fence about when it comes to this movie is its pacing. One of my biggest things I never liked about Hellraiser, the previous movies, is I always felt like I was just waiting on the Cenobites, waiting on Pinhead to show up. And when it did show up, it was like a glorified cameo, and I never understood. I'm like, why? Aren't they supposed to be the main thing? They're never the main thing. They're always in the background, and I want to dive more into that world. And about halfway through this movie, we still hadn't really dove much into that world. And I was thinking, oh God, here we go. They're just going to do it again with this one. Now, luckily, the other half of the film, they really dive deeper into the mythology and the lore of the Cenobites. It can show you a little bit more glimpse into that world.
Greater delights await. Wish to see you proceed. Their blood, their pain.
It did pay it off at the end, but the beginning was running just a little too slow. The story wasn't enough to carry my interest for too much longer, so it came in right about the right time. But I know rewatching the movie, I might get a little bored in that first half. But again, that second half does pay off, so that's why I'm on the fence with it. Now moving along with what I don't like about this movie. Okay, I know nothing about Cenobites. I've seen the first 2 Hellraisers and a couple others freckled out through the series, and I still know nothing about them. I've never read the books. I don't know what they are. I don't know where they come from. I don't know what their purpose is. And I was really hoping this movie would tell me some of that. Now, the movie did a decent job of kind of showing me into their world a little bit, but I still have no clue why they do what they do. I don't know why they send these boxes out for people to figure out these puzzles. I don't know why they do it. And I really want to know why. As a matter of fact, I wish we would spend more time in whatever fucked up world they live in. I don't think there's been a movie that we infiltrate into their world where somebody's rogue and even finding some vulnerabilities that comes with the symbiotes, the Cenobites. And I think that's very well needed, especially now. I mean, you changed their looks up, you changed some of the lore, you changed some of the mythology, great. Now let's go deeper into that. I want to go into their world. I want to see what their vulnerabilities are. Because right now, they don't seem to have any. And that's problematic when it comes to like restarting a franchise. Because why do I want to go see a movie of the same thing happening every time? Oh, I found a box. Oh, I solved it. Oh no, I have to figure this out. I have to figure this out. Then the Cenobites just win every time. Nothing that the protagonist does, no matter if it's good or bad for the protagonist or anybody else in this movie, it doesn't change what the Cenobites do. They still win. They still, no matter what happens, they win. There's nothing taking them out. I don't want to see what I saw in this movie in the next one. I want to see some retaliation. I want to see somebody come back and go, I know how to take these motherfuckers down so they can stop haunting our world or whatever they do, which I would like to find out why they do that, because that would play into that narrative a little bit more. I guess I was hoping this movie would give me some of these answers, and it didn't. It just gave me a little teaser glimpse into what could be without answering any questions that I had. And that kind of sucked. Another thing that I don't like about this movie is the concept of the box or how it was played off in this film. You solve the first puzzle and then thing stabs you. Okay, it has your blood. And in doing so, it becomes very problematic because people you love, people you care about get involved with the box, they get hurt, and you don't want them to die, but they kind of have to. It becomes an emotional mess. But they also set up in this movie the rule that you could just stab anybody. If the box's stabby thing doesn't stab you, you can turn around and stab somebody else, and they're the sacrifice. If you knew how to do each puzzle of this, you could realistically just stay away from the blade, go stab somebody you don't know, do that 6 times, and receive your grand prize at the end. Seems very simplified for an otherwise pretty complex movie concept. By the end of the movie, it kind of became a trope, like, oh, I can just stab you, or I can just stab this, ha, you're dead. Like, I get the concept. You can exchange your life for another, but it just seems very easy to take advantage of that, especially if the wrong person gets the box who doesn't really care about people at all, and he goes around just murdering random people. He's like, man, this is fun. I can't wait to do this again. Just an observation, not too huge, but I just didn't like the fact that they could do that. Overall, I really did enjoy revisiting this franchise. I really enjoyed the creative new life that they breathed into it. I thought the new Pinhead was amazing. Again, the costume designs were impeccable. I found this movie to be believable with its practical horror effects and its storyline, and it rebirthed Pinhead and Cenobites for a whole new generation of people. There were some pacing issues that I had through the middle of it, some plot conveniences I didn't really enjoy, and the fact that I didn't get questions answered that I wanted answered about the Cenobites and Pinhead and their origins really, and why they do what they do. But for all these reasons, I'm giving this movie a B-.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
There you have it, guys. There's my review for Hellraiser, the 2022 film. Let me know, do you guys like this movie? Are you huge Pinhead fans? And if so, how did this movie relate to you? Maybe there's a movie that answers some of the questions that I have, and you can direct me to that movie, because I'd really like to see it. But this film had a chance to give me their version of that, and it still didn't deliver with that. So let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out some more of my videos, and as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.